Hi there, welcome to Terraland Soap Opera. Today I'm going to do a reading for Leo energy. And like usual, we're going to do two rows. The top row I refer to as high vibe Leo energy. The bottom row, a more worldly, shadowy Leo energy. We've all got free will. We have our more high vibrational nature of having hope and faith and belief in our dreams. But the bottom row of our shadow nature can represent our fears or insecurities and things like that. So we'll take a look at it from that perspective. But just like we have our dualistic nature, we're dealing with other people in the world in their dualistic nature. And, we can have people in our life who are more loving and encouraging. And we can have people in our life who kind of align with us being in our more shadowy nature. Similar pain, heartbreak, self-limiting beliefs, whatever it could be. And we have different people we can align with, just like we can align with either nature within ourselves. We can align with these different people. And sometimes if we wanted to live our life a little differently, some of the people in our life either way might not like that, right? And so I think the high vibe people kind of understand that you've got free will, and we've all got lessons to learn. And if you aren't ready to move forward in a more high vibrational way, you're going to move forward in a more worldly, shadowy way, and they understand that. People in a more worldly, shadowy energy, it might bother them more if you were to move forward in life differently, because if they're not ready to move forward, the truth sets us free. We have to work through our fears and our insecurities and past pain and heartbreak to move forward in life differently. And some people don't ever plan to work through those issues within themselves, and then they can be mad that you did. So the shadowy energy that we can all have is more about pride and ego and envy and jealousy, and maybe haven't learned to offer love to the situation and just accept that we all don't think the same. We all aren't motivated and inspired by the same things all the time. So, had a lot of cards come out not showing themselves in the bottom row. We have two cards not showing themselves in the top row. Okay, so the reason for the reading is we have two female cards, and the way I read tarot is that the female cards can talk about how we think and feel. Some people who are high vibe, whether they're male or female, who that motivates and inspires you. It motivates and inspires you within yourself to kind of listen to your intuition to guide you versus more your worldly emotional nature. And you have people in your life, male or female, who emotionally might like to be the main emotional figure in your life, which can be a friend, a sibling, or a romantic interest. And it can represent different people. If there's people in the world who emotionally are still kind of viewing life from a certain perspective, they want you to view life from that perspective. But some of you have already lived that life, been there, done that, and you were kind of inspired to. Up here we have the fish card for starters, which can be connecting in with your emotions and your intuition to guide you versus more your fear, your insecurity, or doing what seems practical and logical by worldly standards. And then we have the bear in reverse. And the bear card can kind of represent mother figure. And I think a lot of us, for quite a bit of our life, we haven't learned to love ourselves and stand up for ourselves and love ourselves. And so we're kind of looking to other people to play that role in our life. And some people got in relationships with people who they thought would be these loving, nurturing people, and they maybe to a degree were loving and nurturing people, but as time went by, you kind of realized that they really didn't want you to, high vibe energy is be more independent. And they wanted you to be more codependent on them and view them as this loving, nurturing person in your life, but not just be more independent of them because they're not more independent from their own ego nature, their past pain and heartbreak, other people in their life, their more worldly view of life. And that whole situation could have been, and going through that experience in different times. And then some people wanted you to play that role in their life. And you could have played that role in people's life, but then there's a point in time where you need to learn to play that role within your own life. I don't mind being a loving and encouraging and supportive person in your life, but I want it to be a more just and fair and balanced relationship where it's not being more codependent on me, you know? Um, Sometimes situations like this kind of remind me of like adult children and parent dynamics. Sometimes it's the child that's like, let me be more independent, live my life. Do I want you in my life? Yes, but you're not. I'm living my more independent life. I'm not looking for you to play that role of a parent in my life to the degree that you used to. And then sometimes it's the opposite way around where you can have an adult child or children that want you to still kind of play a role in their life as if they're 15, and they're 25 and 35 or older. And it's like, that phase of life is over. I do want to be a loving, encouraging, and supportive person in your life, but I want it to be more just and fair and balanced and not like I'm to indulge you in poor behavior because you're my child, but you're an adult, you know? But the same thing can kind of happen in relationships because some people do like more codependent relationships. And they want you to stay more codependent on them. And when you get to be where you're more with the seduction and the red hair, it kind of reminds me of fire sign energy, you're more inspired where I'm not looking for someone to play that role in my life because I've learned how to play that role within myself, be loving and encouraging and supportive to myself. Do I still want loving and encouraging people in my life? Yes. But not it has to be just and fair, where maybe before it was more imbalanced because maybe you were more codependent, which I think we all have been. So, in the bottom row, we have only two cards showing themselves, which is the child and the other child card. Um, the one card says the fifth house, which is Leo energy, which says serve. Some people like being in codependent relationships with someone where you're both kind of codependent on each other, and there too then you could be codependent on other people or making your life more about the world instead of living your more authentic independent life, like, oh no, we've got to conform to this and we got to act like this, and this is what my family does and this is what my friends do, or at least that's what I think, and we should live life like they live life. you know so for some people in your life, you came to realize that they like you being in more codependent energy. They don't want to become more independent. Other people in your life, we could have known people since we were children, but everybody did work within themselves to grow and heal and mature themselves. And now we're both people, or groups of us are people who are more independent. We still are loving and encouraging to each other, but we respect each other as your own individuals. And I don't need you to be more codependent on me. I don't want you more codependent on me. Um, and with some of the people, we keep moving forward in life together. But some people in our life, we could have had to move away from because they do align with our more worldly, shadowy energy, our more codependent nature, our more immature nature, our kind of indulging ourselves in our fear, our insecurity, our pride, our ego, our lust, our greed, or something. And we kind of realize that the card up here, the fish card of Pisces, um, you know, is kind of going with the flow of life. And the flow of life is that, just like I was 15, 18, 21, and 25, I don't stay at that phase of life forever. I kind of learned the lessons I was meant to learn. Was it just and fair for me to be at that phase of life? Yes, because that was my emotional maturity level. That's how I viewed myself. That's how I viewed others, how I viewed the world, how I viewed relationships. But then I go through that phase of life, and then I'm kind of inspired to face my fears of going to the next phase of life. And I quit being more like a 15-year-old or an 18-year-old or a 21 or a 25-year-old. And sometimes at whatever phase of life it can be, because I think, I mentioned the ones when we're young because we had significant milestone things that we did at those ages. We went and got our first job, and then we went and got a second job, and we quit the first job to get a second job, and that was all really scary. And then we maybe moved out on our own, and that was scary. And then and it's all those things that we kind of had to do as kind of the normal process of life that society, and if nothing else, our own parents are telling us to go out there and be more independent. And some people did those things just like everybody else did. They maybe didn't want to even do some of those things, but everybody can have a viewpoint of, it's like people that say, "Oh, I want to get married," and why? And it's like, well, because I want to be married. But it's just like, there's nothing, I don't know, it says something for them, and some people could have been like that. Like, I might have to do these things when I was younger, but I have this viewpoint of life that, boy, when I get to a certain stage in life where I have a job and I'm in a relationship and I'm married, then I'm not going to do anything anything different unless I really have to. And that can just be people that are happy living their life a certain way. And emotionally, though, because the shadow row can be where people are more emotionally aligned with, making their life more about themselves, more about the world, living life more from their ego. Maybe they're more defensive nature, maybe being more about themselves, being maybe indulging their more immature nature. And they have no interest or aspiration to high vibe energy is just freeing yourself from things that manipulate you to keep freeing yourself from things that manipulate you. And some people are like, I hate doing that. I didn't like doing it when I was younger, you know? And some people want to be indulged in a relationship and they're looking for uh someone to play a parent role like in their life. I want you to love me, and I don't want you to be a loving, nurturing person, but don't ever really require me to grow up and mature myself and take over that responsibility within myself. And they could have had parents who kind of indulged them or that they were more codependent on, and they've never learned to play that role in their own life. But when you have a more mismatched relationship, everybody can get in it out of kind of some codependency, but children generally eventually do want to leave home and be more independent. And the problem is we can get in relationships where we're more codependent, but eventually one of the people might want to be more independent. And I think the high vibe people would offer truth and love to the people they're in relationship about wanting the relationship to move forward and face fears and let the relationship grow and mature and be in a more deep meaningful relationship. And some of the other people are like, well, no, I like it like this, we should just keep doing this. And so the bottom row can represent that things kind of become dead and stagnant because one person isn't ever willing to give birth to anything new. We're either kind of inspired to want and be motivated to heal and grow and mature ourselves and free ourselves from things that manipulate us, and some people aren't. And we just kind of need to see the truth of it. She's holding a sword of truth. So, let's look at what the problem ends up being in a relationship. You know, we can be going in the fish card of the Pisces energy, kind of listening to our intuition, and we're drawn and attracted to certain people. And sometimes we are drawn and attracted to certain people who, you know, if we haven't learned to love ourselves yet, we're probably going to be more drawn and attracted to um, people who don't require us to love ourselves and could be happy we don't love ourselves. And we didn't at one time choose people who challenged us to work through our own fears, insecurities, and love ourselves, right? So we could have gotten drawn and attracted to certain people who came into our life that, oh, if you don't love and believe in yourself yet, well, then is this what you want? And then we kind of get in relationship with those people, and we come together with all these different people to find out and help us get more clear about what our truth is and our truth isn't. We can get in a relationship like that. The bottom row can represent that we're staying kind of more in our comfort zone. And we might be used to being in more codependent relationships or being a loving and encouraging person to others for them to heal and grow and change, but not used to being in relationships with people who kind of challenge us to heal and grow and mature ourselves, right? So it's kind of like, no, I like being in relationships with people where they have to change. I'm like the more mature person. And then you can get in a relationship with someone who kind of likes to play that role in people's life too, and that's where you can kind of think that you're kind of on the same page in a way. But the problem is that there's subtle differences between, you know, with some people, you know, you can get in relationships with, like, no, this person's more immature, this person's a little more reckless, this person's a little more prideful or defensive or whatever. Odds are, you know, it's really hard to change someone's truth and their philosophy of life. And the bear card references Taurus energy, which is about people's philosophy of life. That it probably, with most people, if you're someone who's inspired, though, to heal and grow and mature yourself, you could do this work within yourself when you get in relationships with other people. But you could get in relationship with other people where they don't do that. And sometimes someone who really could have seemed like they were on the same page as you and that you kind of, in a way, were on the same page, but you ended up finding out that they like playing that role in people's life, but they don't ever want to make it a more just and fair and balanced relationship. Like, you can heal and grow and mature yourself to a certain point, but not to a point where then, kind of in their ego, that you think I have healing and growing and maturing to do, you know? And then it's like, you know, like, I'll stay in it so long as it stays in this more imbalanced relationship and you stay more codependent on me. And if you start to free yourself from more things that used to manipulate you, um I'm not going to move forward with you in that way, because then they would have to do that work within themselves. And it's like, you can go, I'll go find someone to repeat this pattern with. Or, I don't think you'll keep loving and believing in yourself. Or, I know you have love for me. I think you won't keep standing up for what you believe in, for like more a just, fair, balanced relationship. Because love is supposed to be just and fair. But we can all repeat old patterns, and one person can think it's more just and fair for it to be a little bit more about them. And you could have been used to indulging people in that energy, but you thought maybe they were more emotionally mature than some other people, and you thought they would be someone who would move forward with you, and then you found out they weren't. And some of you have already went through that. Some people are going through it right now. And then those people have to decide if they're willing to kind of stand up for themselves and detach from a more codependent relationship. So when you can get in a relationship where it seems like you're on the same page, but you realize over time that you kind of harness these energies differently. The one person does harness them in a more high vibrational way. The other person didn't know that. And you in turn didn't know that they harness them in a more shadowy way. And then everybody had to work through, am I going to harness them in a more high vibe way? If I see they harness them in a more shadowy way, are they going to work through it? Are they not? Am I going to work through it? Am I going to keep staying in this energy? Am I going to keep thinking this is just and fair and not really maybe live my authentic truth, maybe live life more from my ego and my defensive nature or my fearful nature or my more codependent nature? Or am I going to do this work? And with some of the people in our life, we all did this work within ourselves, and we could have been loving and encouraging to each other to grow and heal and mature ourselves. And that's why we kind of keep moving forward with those people, and then we move forward in that way, and then we keep facing our fears and insecurities and things that manipulate us at that level of life, and then we move forward to the next phase of life, But with some people, we couldn't we weren't seeing that we harness these energies differently. Wealthy man, playmate, house, tree, thinking or thoughts, and the birds. So the birds over here and the house is fire sign energy. This card up here reminds me of fire sign energy. Growing up in the world, we're pretty kind of seduced by the world and these things we want to go invest our time, energy, and effort into. The playmate also kind of reminds me of Sagittarius energy. We want to be in friendships and relationships, and we want to indulge in these certain things of the world. And, so for the first 30, 40 years of our life, we can be pretty caught up in those things, and then we can get in relationships. And the wealthy man reminds me of the King of Pentacles, which can be, the kings can just represent how people present themselves in the world. The feminine figures talk about how they really think and feel. We kind of are motivated and inspired to look like a more stable, grounded, mature person than probably we really were at different times, but we kind of wanted to present ourselves that way as being abundant in a variety of ways so that other people would want to be in relationship with us and be friends with us. And and we come in contact with all these different people to help us get more clear about our truth. And we go in those friendships and relationships. And then in the tree card and the thoughts card and the bird card, there comes a point in time in jobs, friendships, and relationships that we start to really think about what the truth is, because the tree card is Virgo energy, which is kind of what is my long-term goals and my truth I could have been caught up in this, and I thought this would make me happy, and I thought this was my truth. But that's the thing, as time goes by, we don't think the same way that we used to think at certain ages. We're not motivated and inspired to invest our time, energy, and effort into certain things and ways of living life and viewing life that at one time we thought was really great and really fun. Hopefully we kind of grow up and mature ourselves and kind of get more clear about what our truth is and our truth isn't. And in high vibe, we're kind of looking with this main female holding a sword, and I view the thoughts card as the King of Swords, kind of looking to see, are we counterparts? Do we have the same truth? Are we operating from the same foundation? What is it that drives and motivates you? What's your long-term goals and ambitions? What really ultimately drives me and what are my long-term goals and ambitions. And in Virgo energy, is it more, I want to be in a relationship, I want to keep moving forward in a relationship, I want to have be in a relationship, have stability, security, be in relationships with people I like and I enjoy. But at a core foundational level, it's more driven from a more worldly perspective. This makes practical, logical sense. I should do this. This would look victorious and successful in the world. I should do this. This maybe doesn't require me to be more bold, brave, and confident in my life. Perfect. I didn't want to be more bold, brave, and confident anyway. This looks stable and secure, and we can go through that phase of life, you know. Maybe when we were younger, we kind of did more of the things that maybe did seem more aligned with our truth. But then maybe that could be a little scary. So then we decided to live more from our mind than our heart, or vice versa. But eventually there comes the time in any job, friendship, or relationship that, we really got to think about what is my truth? What is their truth? What do I think is just and fair? What do they think is just and fair? If it's the same, and we think in the fire sign energy of Sagittarius that, we have similar dreams, motivations, and inspirations, well, then we'll probably keep being in friendships and relationships and staying in certain jobs. And we'll all kind of keep working together. Hopefully being loving and encouraging and supportive of each other. But sometimes some people, they don't want to take more creative, inspired action in their life emotionally. They might like to live more from their mind than their heart. They might like to stay in their comfort zone. They very much might be about, we've got to do is practical and logical. And this seems practical and logical. I don't want to listen to my intuition. I don't want to maybe do more deep, meaningful relationships. I might be happy being in a relationship with someone. We get along, that's good. And that, again, some people emotionally are not really inspired to. High vibe Leo is being more independent, living your more authentic life, shining your authentic light. Quit making your life more about the ego and conforming to the world. Face your fears. Live your authentic truth. We still put in work and effort to have stability and security and have jobs, friendships, and relationships, but I want to make sure I'm not doing it more out of being emotionally manipulated by my mind, by my fear, by my past, by heartbreak, by immaturity, by lust, by greed. And I don't want people to be in a relationship with me for those reasons. That if people are going to be in a relationship with me, and I certainly don't want a more imbalanced, codependent, or immature, or bossy, or controlling, or manipulative type relationship. I have a dream. Pisces can talk about our dreams that we have emotionally, and it's being inspired to free yourself from. Taurus can represent these institutions of the world and conforming to the world. I want to live my authentic truth from love. I don't want to do things because that's what other people are doing, or that's what people say I should do, or that's what my goals and ambitions should be. I have my own dreams and ambitions of what my truth is, and it could be less about conforming to the world and doing the status quo or staying in something, even though I could be really emotionally kind of tempted by those things, because I'm a human being. I want friendship, relationship, I want stability and security, but if I feel like maybe someone I'm in a relationship with kind of is more strategic or more immature and self-indulgent, and it's not really living more from their mind than their heart, which can be operating from shadowy Leo of their ego. I want someone who has hope and faith and belief and love, who wants to work together with me, where we still put in the work and effort to have the stability and the security and the jobs and whatever, but ultimately really motivated and inspired by love. And that we do give birth to our own unique thing. And for some people, it's like, nope, I'm not doing that. That would require me, shadowy Taurus energy of the bear card can be, this is the way you should do things, and this is the way my folks did things, and this is the way my friends do things, and this is the way I think about the world, and I think we should do it like this, and maybe I do think it should be more about me, or it should be more about the ego or the image, and that's why I should get in relationships, and that's why you should get in relationships, and that's why you should stay in relationships. And it's kind of never inspired to listen to their own intuition. It's like following someone else's template, or a fear template, or a defensive template, or a self protective or materialistic playing it safe template. And it's like, I'm inspired to listen to my intuition. So, and while you were in some of those relationships, you know, at the time where you're kind of thinking, gee, I don't know if I want to keep staying in this relationship, the other people are probably thinking they didn't want to stay in the relationship. Because if one person is more inspired to free themselves from things that manipulate them, maybe get more balance within themselves, or maybe more they were tipped out of balance of being more immature, more codependent, whatever it could have been, inspired by things of the world, and now they've started to do work to get more balance within themselves. Well, the people who are in a relationship with don't like that. Well, I used to be able to emotionally manipulate, High vibe Leo is being authentic and honest and loving and encouraging. And high vibe Taurus is really being who you say you are and walking the talk. And shadowy people can try to create the illusion they're that type of person. But in shadowy energy, it's more trying to create that illusion, but it's trying to, again, this makes logical, practical sense. This might work for me. This looks just and fair. I like this. It benefits me. But it's kind of like living more from their ego and their mind than actually being inspired emotionally from love. And then I do think probably the people who are more motivated and inspired by love offer love and encouragement, as some people are healing and getting more balanced and being more inspired to feel more comfortable in their own skin, feeling more balanced within themselves, wanting things to be more just and fair. That isn't how the other people are. They're not making those same choices. And so then they're making choices again to try to manipulate or control. And then kind of as time goes by, you kind of see that some of the people who you thought were more just and fair and more motivated and inspired by love, that they kind of really aren't who they say they are. It's kind of more, a little bit more has to be about them. And so some people got out of those relationships, and it could have definitely been difficult because, you did view someone, whether it's a friend or a family member or a romantic interest, you viewed them as a loving, nurturing person in your life. And they definitely could have been, but, anybody going down the path of life can kind of drift their life off into the ditch and, kind of get caught up in themselves, get caught up in things they might like to indulge in to make themselves feel better, instead of being more inspired within themselves to do this work, to choose things that are more beneficial for them moving forward in life and in their friendships and their relationships. And they can kind of get to be maybe, people can even get spoiled in a relationship where, they think that because another person kind of puts in all this work and effort to make it just and fair and loving and encouraging, they kind of get to sit back and indulge in it. And then they start to think they should be indulged in it. Or they start to think, like, wow, the reason this person is like this is because of me. And they don't realize you have your own free will and you're free willingly. That is the truth of who you are. And you work together with people in that energy regardless, but it can kind of go to some people's head. Like, oh my gosh, I could get almost anybody. I mean, this person really seems to think I'm great. Well, that person could have loved them. So that person was willing to put a lot of work and effort into a foundation to try to make it kind of victorious and successful and just and fair, which now I'm having throat problems, which is Taurus energy. And then they think, oh my gosh, like anybody would be willing to do this in a relationship with me. So they can get kind of caught up in their ego. And so they might make some bad decisions in their life, and some other people see that, um, you know, if you were at one time being more just and fair and putting in work and effort, you seem to have kind of been tempted in your more worldly nature. And I see the truth of it, and as time goes by, kind of wrapping their brain around it, and eventually they decide to move on and detach from those people because they no longer view them as the emotionally nurturing, loving person that they did before. And if they used to view them as someone who acted with character and integrity and was more just and fair, they don't anymore. And so they had to do this work within themselves to love and believe in themselves and stand up for themselves and what they think is just and fair. So then, as people are moving forward, you're moving forward, you're different. You did do this work. You knew you could make your life more about the world, but you were kind of more inspired in yourself because the Four of Wands, it does say Taurus energy, the house card, but in typical tarot, it's Aries. So in your philosophy of self, your truth is you are kind of more inspired by truth and love and justice and fairness and healing and growing and maturing yourself. And some of the people that you got in relationship with didn't know that about you because they thought you were more like them and that you would keep willing to be more inspired by the world and to be in a relationship because it was logical and practical. And yeah, could it have tempted you to stay in it for those reasons or a job? Yeah. But if it feels like you can't be more authentically yourself, or feeling like people are being more trying to manipulate you or control you, or bossy or immature, or they want to be indulged in poor behavior, it's like, no, I'll let someone else work here, or let someone else date you or marry you. I'm leaving. So while you are moving forward in your life, you're continuing to do this work to, because you don't want to repeat that old pattern, and there's always going to be people like that in the world. And if you were drawn and attracted to those people for some reason, which we all can be tempted in our more worldly nature, and by what people look like and their stability, their security, their attractiveness, their charm, whatever, right? You're doing this work within yourself to see what it was that did kind of draw and attract you to certain type of people, to not be in denial of it, to see the truth of it. And I think for some of you, you've already done that. And That's what some people in your life don't know, and other people in your life don't know about you. Because people see you kind of moving forward. Um, people could view you as someone that people would want to be in relationship with. That can be the King of Pentacles, that people view you as someone like they would like to work with, be friendships with, date, marry if you're single. That you're kind of challenge people now in high vibe energy. Well, you can keep doing that if you want, and you can keep being in relationships and friendships and workplaces that are like that, but that's not my truth. And then those people have to think, well, gee, do I want to live my life like this? And I could have someone who's indulging me. Does that really what makes me happy? I could be indulging someone else for these things of the world. Is that my truth? Is that what I think is the most important thing? Is just to be in a relationship, have a relationship with someone who I don't think loves and believes in themselves, isn't more independent? Am I not more independent? Am I more codependent? You just living your authentic life causes other people to think about how they're living their life. And some people are like, yep, nope, that's not my truth. I don't care. You do what you want to do. I am going to do this again. I am more inspired emotionally to maybe live more from my mind than my heart, do what's practical and logical. I'll indulge someone else, that's shadowy Taurus relationship, or if I can find someone to indulge me. But either way, I'm not doing love. I have free will. I can get hurt doing love. That's a whole out of my comfort zone. I might use my emotions, my sexuality, my looks, my charm, my money, my body, all in a manipulative way to get people to stay in a relationship, but I'm not going to let my more authentic nature out to play in the world because they could get hurt. But as people were moving forward, they had to work through detaching from these energies in a more worldly, shadowy way so they wouldn't be drawn and attracted to repeating that pattern, and to harness them in a more high vibe way. The Five of Pentacles and the Journey card, which the Journey card is the black and white picture. We all kind of like to stay in our comfort zone. We'd all like to not have to face our fears. We'd all like the job, friendships, and relationships we've invested in to work out the way we want. But we've already seen the truth with some of the people in our life, that they have a way of viewing life and relationships that they think are just and fair, and we were in it and we didn't like it. So we had to go through a period of feeling left out in the cold, and people were willing to do that. And that's why some people aren't going to move forward with you. They have things and people in their life or the world that they would have to. The poverty card is like the Five of Pentacles, which is also Taurus energy. I have to detach from this old way of living life or viewing life and move forward in life. And if I do that, there are going to be other people who will turn their back to me because that's not their truth. And they want to be in relationships and friendships with people who live their life like this. Well, some of the people you are in relationship with or were in relationship with, they also have people in their life who live their life a certain way and don't want them to be more independent of them and love and believe in themselves. They like to kind of manipulate and control them. And you could have seen that, but the people you were in relationship with don't want to see the truth of it. And again, it can just be a friend or a friend group, a family group, like, and it's basically people like, this is how we live our life. You should live your life like this too. We made these decisions to act like this and behave like this and get in relationships and stay in relationships for these reasons. You should too. If you go live your authentic life and really believe in yourself and are more independent, you know, it might kind of bother us that why didn't we go do that? And instead of even working through why it would kind of bother them, they in turn just try to manipulate and control people in their life to stop them from doing it. And some of the people in your life are like, yep, no, I think some of these people in my life wouldn't like it, and I'm not willing to stand up for myself or require the relationship to be more just and fair and balanced and be more independent of them. I'm going to keep aligning with them or the world or whatever. And you're like, okay, that's not my truth. And I'm going to detach from that Four of Pentacles foundation. And I'm going to go on this journey. And I'm going to work through feeling left out in the cold. In Pisces energy and fire sign energy, I'm going to be inspired to offer myself love and encouragement. I am going to take over that role of being my own best mother, father, coach voice within myself, to believe in myself, believe in my dreams. I've already been there and done that, and I realized I didn't like it. So, and then as you go and you move through that, eventually, you can go through a period of feeling left out in the cold. You can go through a period of wishing that things would work out the way you want, but we have to deal with the truth. And the truth is, every day you're making the decision to live your more authentic life, and it has to be just and fair and truthful and honest and authentic and loving. And the other people every day are choosing to do this other thing. Is every day it keeps showing you that your dream never really could come into reality with them. And as you keep offering love to that, because love is the answer, the less you kind of feel left out in the cold. And then the journey card is kind of reminding me of a Six of Cups card, of reconciling yourself with issues from the past emotionally, coming to a place of peace to it, letting it be in the past, just like we can work through all the different things in our life that used to emotionally manipulate us from the time we were children, people in our life that we thought were more caught up in themselves or their relationships or things they indulged in or their image or whatever, instead of being maybe more balanced in their life and more encouraging or supportive or something. And it's like, I'm going to work through all of that so I can let it go and be free of it. And I think as you do that, just energetically, it makes you more appealing and attractive in a way, because energetically, people can probably tell that you're not more, it's just the energy that you embody, that it's not more about pride, ego, lust, greed, uh, being manipulative, being defensive. And people can be attracted to you, but people don't know if you do kind of feel left out in the cold, and if they could get you, if they're someone who likes this way of living life, could get you to go repeat that past pattern. And some people might try to communicate with you to get to know you, to find out if you have more of a lack mentality, harnessing these energies in a more shadowy way. You're just not showing people it. And then as people get to know you, it's like, no, I kind of worked through my lack mentality and reconciled myself with some issues from my past that didn't work out. And I'm inspired to learn the next lessons in life. And if life's about learning lessons, then I think if I keep not repeating certain patterns, that the next lesson will appear. Because it's kind of like if you were to look at life as a video game, like back in the day with Mario Brothers or any game where you had to overcome obstacles on a certain level before you could go to the next level. It's kind of like you're at the next level waiting, but there does take this time emotionally And that could be the time that you're taking to offer love to yourself as you do work through the fact that of letting some of these things go so that you're not drawn and attracted to people out of that pain or that heartbreak, or getting to a place of seeing the truth. I accept that people are where they're at. Everybody has free will. Everybody can present themselves as these just and fair and stable and grounded people, whether they're male or female. But for some of them, that's not the truth of who they really are. And I've learned that lesson. I'm going to take that lesson that I've learned with me. And I'm willing, to get to know people. But I'm not going to just move forward with people being in denial of the truth. I do need, in the Six of Cups, to get to know people, to figure out, get a sense of what their truth is, of what drives them, motivates them. And if I believe that they are someone who is more motivated and inspired by these ways of living life or viewing life, like I've already gone through, that's not my truth. And if I get to know them and I find out that's not their truth, that they also have been in relationships with people that it was a little bit more about indulging someone or being caught up more in the world. We were more focused on those things. Now, more about living our authentic truth and things being more just and fair, being more bold and brave and confident within yourself, to be less manipulated in your maybe more codependent energy or want for being in a relationship. I can be in relationships with people and I don't get in a more romantic relationship with them. And I'm done thinking I can change people. The fives can talk about change. If I meet people and they show me that they're repeating some of these old patterns, like that are something I've already kind of worked through, that's not where I'm at. If you're more defensive to love, yep, that's not me. I'm not defensive to love. um, More emotionally shallow and superficial. The Six of Cups reminds me of Scorpio energy. You either want to be in more authentic, high vibe Leo, deep, meaningful relationships, high vibe Scorpio, and you're not more about the ego and the image, shadowy Taurus, but really inspired to kind of walk the talk, high vibe Taurus energy, high vibe Capricorn, high vibe Aries, high vibe Libra. And if that's not where they're at, then that's not where they're at. I'm not going to get in a more involved relationship with you, where before I could have stayed in denial of the truth and tried to change people. It's like I'm done trying to change people because it doesn't work anyway. If they were motivated and inspired to be that type of person that is more open, more mature, more just, more fair, more hopeful, and believing in love, they would already be that type of person. I'm going to believe in my dreams, invest more of the time, energy in enjoying my life, my friends, my family, if I'm not in a relationship, and believe that I don't want to get myself tangled up in something I shouldn't be tangled up in to begin with. I'm waiting for the people who I think are really more on the same page as me. What's coming up for people who harness a high vibe Leo energy that they might not see coming? Okay. The Ten of Pentacles. Why? Because of the Five of Swords. So, the Five of Swords, again, the fives talk about change. The five comes after the 1, 2, 3, and 4. And healing from past pain and heartbreak. You've changed. You're not the same person that you were. You've healed your foundation. The Ten of Pentacles is Virgo energy. At one time, just like the rest of the world, you could have been more caught up, been more codependent, more immature, lived more from your mind than your heart, hadn't learned to love yourself, blah, blah, blah. You are very abundant now in the Ten of Pentacles. And the tens also talk about completing a cycle. We repeat a certain phase, a cycle, until we learn the lesson we were meant to learn from it. And then we're ready to close out that cycle. So after the Ten of Pentacles comes the Ace of Pentacles, the new beginning. Because you changed, because you healed. The Five of Swords is also Aquarius energy. You looked at life from a higher perspective and you put things in perspective. Instead of taking action more out of fear and insecurity and pride and ego, you did this work within yourself. So you are very abundant, could be shine energetically, if nothing else, you're kind of shining because you're not taking action from this more shadowy energy. And other people can see that. And I think as you move forward in that energy, there's going to be other people like you that have also healed and changed and learned some of these same lessons. And I think you're going to feel very stable and abundant and grounded within yourself. Other people see you as very stable, abundant, and grounded instead of more immature, prideful, manipulative, egoic. And I think there's other people who see you as someone that their dreams can come into reality with. And I think, it's just taking that time to get to know each other for the new people that you meet in your life, to get to know each other well enough to work through some issues of past issues that you both went through, to have some hope and faith and belief in moving forward. It's just could maybe kind of be at the initial stages. And if it was that you left a job, you've changed jobs, and you're in a much more emotionally stable, mature environment than where you were before, or friend group. What's coming up for people that are harnessing a more worldly, shadowy Leo energy? What's coming up for them that they might not see coming? Okay. Oh, goodness. The Fool, the Death card, the Empress card, the Emperor card. Is that the Emperor? Yeah. And the Strength card. And the reason is because death to the Seven of Wands, which is Leo energy, and we end the story with the Strength card, which is Leo energy. Some people got a lot of lessons to learn. They're going to keep repeating some old patterns because they don't want to put an end to their defensiveness. Death to defensiveness. They don't want to put an end to their defensiveness and living more from their ego nature. Even though they've probably had some significant people in their life, detach from them, because those people harness high vibe Empress, high vibe Emperor. If you're a high vibe Emperor, presenting yourself in the world as an emotionally mature, stable, grounded person, it's because emotionally you are an emotionally mature, stable, balanced, loving person. And you've tempered your ego. You've gotten out of your defensiveness. You've transformed your life. I kind of view the sevens as tipping points. You're either kind of more tipped in favor of your worldly nature or more tipped in favor of your hopeful, believing, loving nature. And some of these people have gotten in relationships with people who at one time could have been more defensive, to change, believing in themselves, loving themselves, standing up for themselves. But those people got out of their defensiveness and instead got inspired to stand up for what they believe in. And they could have friends or family members or love interests in their life that have been defending this dead situation, considered dead when it's not motivated and inspired by love. But eventually those people, maybe after several failed attempts to try to move things forward, being defensive, because when we're in relationships, we can put a lot of work and effort to try to make things work because we'd like them to work instead of leaving. But it's kind of like maybe third time's the charm, you know? And eventually people are like, that's it, I'm done. I can't keep not listening to my more creative, inspired, intuitive, loving nature that wants to give birth to something new. I can't keep staying in something that's dead, where, you know, nothing's ever going to change. And shadowy Scorpio, the death card, just seeing over and over that some people or some different people that you've gotten in relationships with, they are just more emotionally shallow, superficial, more about themselves, maybe bossy or controlling, have a lot of other things and people in their life that intimidate and control them or their ego, and not willing to be more authentically themselves, and knowing I can't be in relationships with people who are not willing to let their more authentic, loving nature out to play. I'm in a relationship with someone's cardboard cutout person, their false persona, their ego, their inner nature, their authentic nature looks out through the eyeballs, but they don't. I view the thoughts card as the King of Swords. They're more self-protected, defensive natures. Like, you're not going out there to play. You get hurt, male or female. Nope, we're going to play it safe. We're going to keep operating from our ego. We want to be in relationships. We'll use our emotions and our charm and our thoughts and our assets and our body and everything we have to try to get them to get in a relationship with us. And we'll be nurturing or supportive and just and fair to a degree, but we're not really going to let our more authentic emotional nature out to play. We're going to operate from our defensive egoic nature. Some people are having a third significant relationship person leave their life because they're unwilling to be more authentic or less controlling or less manipulative or less immature, or have this philosophy of life of how they think relationships are supposed to be that somewhere they got in their head, and they're unwilling to change. They might have a hard time finding someone who wants to stay in a relationship with them being that way. But there's always going to be people in their life that live their life like that too, friends or family members. Yeah, don't go with those people. Yeah, don't give birth to anything new. Don't love and believe in yourself. Let's stay here and keep doing this. I like that maybe I'm the one who can manipulate you, or I'm glad you live life like me so then we can go hang out together. Let's not give birth to anything new. Let's keep repeating this old pattern over and over. Let's keep being defensive. Let's get in relationships with people who um, are maybe more codependent, haven't seen the truth of who we are yet, buy into the illusion we are. Let's indulge in it until they do see the truth. And then when they do see the truth, we'll have to end the relationship. But if they can find someone who also doesn't want to live their more authentic life, who also isn't inspired to give birth to anything new, well, then we'll have two people go on a journey of non-life giving energy. We're happy doing this. Well, that would be a just and fair relationship. If both of them don't want to give birth to anything new, both of them want to be in a relationship to be in a relationship, it's more about the ego and the image. You got to be practical and logical and just temper their more creative, inspired nature. No, no, no. We're not going to go do our authentic life. We're going to do this and conform to the world. It's kind of like holding back their life force energy, their authentic life force energy. And other people are willing to go with the flow and step outside their comfort zone, face their fears. And these people might have what looks, for some of them, very stable and secure, looks victorious and successful by the world, but it's not inspired by truth and love. and the other people have healed, and they are in relationships and friendships with people based on truth and love and justice and fairness and healing. And though they might look the same, emotionally, they're much different foundations that they operate from. So there you go, Leo. I wish you peace, love, and joy, and we'll see you next time. Bye bye.